Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa. As a speaker today, I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional and ceded series of the Semiahmoo First Nation as well as the Casey and Qualla peoples. I'm grateful to be here, and I honor the indigenous peoples who continue to live, learn, and study on this land. Today, I represent a large and a diverse group. I'm a descendants of Canadian settlers. My parents came here in pursuit of a better life, and this land has been home to an ancient nation. When I first heard the word reconciliation, I admit that the image that came to my mind was calm, like a handshake, a signed document, and a moment of apology can enable us to turn this difficult page and move on. It makes people feel comfortable and it's also very easy. But I gradually came to understand that reconciliations are not nor an option that can be checked. Reconciliation is a verb. It is an active, continuous, and often challenging process focused on establishing new relationships between indigenous people and non-indigenous peoples. It requires not only good wishes but also actions. So, what exactly does the reconciliation movement look like in practice? From a large social perspective, it began with honest truth telling from those who hold power. The reason why public admission is important is that it brings the historical mistakes that were ignored into the public eye, preventing the harm from being denied. This comes from those in power, not merely a verbal apology, but also a formal confirmation and respect for others. It makes the survivors feel seen and believed. It also sends a clear signal to society, which means the past harm is real and we must face up to and correct it. For me, it didn't start from a novel, but from the genius and public accountability works of those in power. The openly acknowledge the injustice, making straightforward systems of remorse. They also involve meaningful symbolic acts of the survivor's own voice. Stephen Harper's government apology in 2008 is a powerful example. Meanwhile, Jack London and Stephen Din also publicly admitted that boarding schools have brought profound pain to Indigenous children. They acknowledging the government's responsibility and the urgency of reconciliation. Similarly, in 2002, People France officially apologized in Canada, acknowledging that the church had played a role in operating many boarding schools and directly seeking forgiveness from the survivors. Through these actions, reconciliation becomes more than just a policy and becomes an emotional recognition of the shared painful history. It can make it no longer only their past, but an overall responsibility that requires reflection and change. Reconciliation is not merely the responsibility of the government, but also the responsibility of everyone. Canada is a multicultural society, therefore, every individual should learn and understand the specialities of their own culture as well as others. This perspective is also fit for the reconciliation progress. Whether the background we carry out, we should do something to protect the interests of the marginal culture and also build the parts of Canadian history just like Indigenous culture. As a Chinese student, studying in Canada, I stand at the intersection of Eastern and Western culture and have particular complex feeling about the world of reconciliation. This feeling is deeply rooted in my cultural learning. When I read about the profound drama that the Japanese invasion of China brought to the Chinese nation, I realized that those hidden pains have endured for generations. I would say this empathy is from the memories of ancestors that enabled me to feel a reason, because the Japanese government has avoid historical responsibility. The indigenous people on this land are also suffering from the pain of being systematically ignored, systematically ignored and forgotten. In school, I took the course BCB First People last semester. When the teacher talked about the residential school system, what came to my mind were those silent names in the memory hall of the Nanjing Ministry. I'm deeply aware that it's not only for the Chinese people who are expecting a formal apology from Japan, but also for the indigenous people who long for the Canadian government to admit the injustice of the history. We all need the official and the formal commitment. This is the first step towards healing. This experience has convinced me that the multicultural perspective I poses is not a barrier about a bridge. As a Chinese who has experienced the pain of the nation, I understand that the longing for justice in the hearts of the indigenous people. As a international student living in Canada, I also have the responsibility to bring back the histories of the scars here to the Chinese community I belong to. Reconciliation is not the end, but a journey that all of us must work together. It requires us to listen before speaking and to act before feeling comfortable. For me, this has reshaped my perspective, changed my understanding, and also my definition of my role in the community. As someone who has both inherited the traditions of Chinese immigrants, I understand that reconciliation can be achieved through empathy, honesty, and responsibility. We cannot change what has happened, but we can decide how to deal with it. We need to recognize the truths of indigenous people and stand with those whose voice are hers. Reconciliation does not only belong to government or the leaders, but belongs to all of us who live on this land. These actions are not regarded as a symbolic, but also a true commitment.